Tonight on the Black Channel, as we look here at the legalization of marijuana on 420 Day, I'm asking a basic question here. How does this benefit us? The Black Channel is live. Unapologetic, unadulterated, and absolutely uncompromising. Greetings, brothers and sisters from around the world, and welcome back to the home, the haven, the stronghold, and the everlasting super fortress of intelligent black thought. We are the Black Media, and this is the Black Channel. And I am your host, your brother, your humble servant, the voice of Black America, the Black Authority, broadcasting to you live from the only historically black college university of higher education and learning in the cosmos. You are, of course, welcome to join us. And join us you shall, because on tonight's program here, a lot of ground to cover. I'm going to start here. A lot of things have happened, a lot of things occurring. A lot of things in the last decade or so, and I want us to do a bit of a retrospective on that. Not going to necessarily get off into your favorite weed heads. We don't want that to become the topic of discussion. But I do want to take a look at a couple of things here. What I want to take a look at is the so-called war on drugs, and I'm going to focus here first on marijuana in particular here. I want to only focus on marijuana today. I'll do an opportunity to do that because the Associated Press has an article here. They have an article, and there's a reason that I'm bringing this up. There's a reason why I'm bringing this article up. Dateline is Arlington, Washington, when Washington State opened some of the nation's first legal marijuana stores in 2014, Sam Ward, remember his name, was on an electronic home detention in Spokane where he had been indicted on federal drug charges. He would soon be off to prison to serve a lion's share of a 4-year sentence. A decade later, Ward, who is black, recently posed in a blue and gold throne used for photo ops at his new cannabis store, Cloud9 Cannabis. He greeted customers walking in for early 420 deals, and he reflected on being one of the first beneficiaries of a Washington program to make the overwhelmingly white industry more accessible to people harmed by the war on drugs. When we discuss reparations, when we talk about reparations, I want you to understand that we need to discuss reparations across the board. When we have been targeted, that is exactly what needs to be undone. They come up with these laws, and they've been doing that for decades, where they make the rules and they target us for being black, and then say, oh, well, the law that we made doesn't say black people. No, you're just describing everything that we're doing, and your DAs only press those laws against black folk and give white people a pass, which is the whole point. So you cannot have correction unless it focuses those resources back towards the people that you targeted. And if the benefits are not targeting us, like the penalties targeted us, then it is illegitimate. Goes on to say here, it feels great to know that I'm a CEO of a store with employees, people depending on me, Ward said. Just being a part of something makes you feel good. A major argument for legalizing the adult use of cannabis was to stop the harm caused by disproportionate enforcement of drug laws that sent millions of Black, Latino, and other minorities to prison. What? Yeah. Yeah, you knew that was coming. You knew the lemon twist was coming in there. Studies have shown that minorities were incarcerated at a higher rate than white people, despite similar rates of cannabis use. Now, the folks who tell you about black folk committing all the crimes, understand something. Now, I've talked to Jared Taylor and Richard Spencer, and for those of you who see my documentary Race War, you already know that I debunked it right in front of them. It didn't stop any of them from repeating it. They say the same thing. They still keep telling the same fib, but it didn't stop them from repeating it. That it's not a matter of black folk committing more crimes. White people are given a pass in the system of white supremacy. They commit these crimes at the similar rate, and yet they don't get incarcerated. Hell, they don't get prosecuted. They get sent home. For white people, they commit these crimes and then get given, quote, diversionary programs. They get diversionary programs. We, on the other hand, get sent straight to jail. Yeah, diversionary is too good for you. But efforts to help those most affected participate in and profit from the legal marijuana sector have been halting. Since 2012, when voters in Washington and Colorado approved the first ballot measures to legalize recreational marijuana, legal adult use has spread to 24 states and the District of Columbia. Nearly all have, quote, social equity provisions designed to redress drug war crimes. Drug war damages, though might as well be drug war crimes. Social equity. Dr. Claude Anderson taught us the folly of doing these kind of things here, because they're going to use the word social equity and then they're going to give things to everyone except us. That's the problem with using these vague terms, social equity. Who is social? When was social targeted by the drug laws? Who'd they go after with social? Those provisions include erasing criminal records for certain pot convictions, certain ones, granting cannabis business licenses and financial help to people convicted of cannabis crimes, and directing marijuana tax revenues to communities that suffered. Directing marijuana tax revenues to communities that suffered. Communities that suffered. Folks, let me explain to you what the big con job here is. Directing marijuana tax revenues to communities that suffered. First of all, that's very vague. But second of all, they've destroyed those communities. What? Those communities are gone. Let's take, for example, Brooklyn, New York. Let's take, for example, Harlem, New York. Let's take, for example, Bedford-Stuyvesant. Let's take, for example, Cabrini Green. Let's take, for example, all those kind of places like that. They've come in and they've marched in and they've taken it over and gentrified them. So they grabbed everybody, incarcerated as many as they could, and then gentrified the places. So those, quote, neighborhoods are now occupied by whites and Asians, upper middle class and upper middle class whites and Asians. So do you see the con job that continues? We're going to take the marijuana tax revenues and give them to the folks where we've gentrified you out of. The folks we arrested are gone. So what needs to happen is you go down the list of the people that you incarcerated, and that's where you give the benefits. That is reparations. Not directing marijuana tax revenues. No. We need to have reparations. If you arrested them for marijuana and dealing, those need to be the folk who get the resources. And no, you're not going to give them all to the white ones either. So you can go based on the neighborhood. And, were you arrested and incarcerated from this neighborhood and this community over here? Well, we need to make sure that you get properly funded. We need to make sure that gets put in your hands. You know, like you've done for Jews and the Japanese and other folk. Yeah, that's what you would do. But I want y'all to see the trick bag right there. Directing marijuana to communities that suffered. Those communities are gone. That's why they're saying that. This is the demonic scheming of white supremacy. Goes on to say here that social equity programs are an attempt to reverse the damage that was done to black and brown communities who are over-policed and disproportionately impacted, said Calico Castile, former president of the Minority Cannabis Business Association. All right. States have varying ways of defining who can apply for social equity marijuana licenses, and they're not necessarily based on race. Do you all see that? States have varying ways of defining who can apply for social equity marijuana licenses, and they're not necessarily based on race. Not necessarily means it's not based on race. And now the victims who they target is based on race, but when it comes time for reparations, all of a sudden, well, can't base no race now. In Washington, an applicant must own more than half the business and meet other criteria, such as having lived for at least 5 years between 1980 and 2010 in an area with high poverty. That's a canard. They're going to go grab some white folks or some white women and say that they're below the poverty line. Unemployment or cannabis area arrests. They sweep that one under the rug. Having been arrested for a cannabis-related crime, cannabis-related crime, which can probably, does that include driving while intoxicated? Because that lets your white folk in. Or having a below median household income. Below median, these are things that have nothing to do with marijuana. Did you get that? Did you all get that? An applicant must own more than half of the business and meet other criteria. Now, it would be different if you have to meet all these criteria. But I assure you, when you take a look at who they're giving the licenses to, those folks, white folk, are not meeting all these criteria. So we know that that's a scam right there. Now, listen to this next part. Legal challenges. Oh, yes, they're being challenged. Legal challenges over the permitting process in states like New York have slowed implementation. After settling other cases, New York, which has issued 60% of all cannabis licenses to social equity applicants, including, according to regulators, is facing another lawsuit. Listen to this now. Last month, the libertarian-leaning Pacific Legal Foundation alleged that it favors women and minority-owned applicants in addition to those who can demonstrate harm from the drug war. These are not your so-called Republicans. These are your so-called libertarians. They are upset with New York's social equity program because they said that it favors women and minority-owned applicants in addition to those who can demonstrate harm from the drug war. The folks who've been targeted, not women. If you're not black, no. Quote, it's that type of blanket racial and gender preference that the Constitution prohibits, said Pacific legal attorney David Hoffa. Why don't we go ahead and take a look at the Pacific Legal Foundation? If you will direct your eyes toward the screen here, you can take a look at the Pacific Legal Foundation. And just like Ed Blum, you start seeing something very familiar and very predictable when you take a look at the Pacific Legal Foundation. Here is the executive leadership, bad teeth and all, Stephen Anderson and James S. Burling, John M. Groen, Chad Wilcox, the senior attorneys, Larry Salzman, Steve Simpson, Robert Thomas, Joshua Thompson, Jay Bremer, Oliver Dunford, Brian Hodges, Deborah LaFetra, Christina Martin, Jeffrey McCoy, Mark Miller, Glenn Roper, Damian Schiff. Have you all seen a black face yet? Because all I see is all white people. All I see is all white people. Have you seen a black face yet? I wonder what legal foundation is going to go around targeting black people and trying to make it seem like they're not targeting them. I wonder what legal foundation they put together a bunch of attorneys to defend white privilege and white supremacy. I wonder. Now the folks I have over here before, these are your senior attorneys. Here are your not so senior attorneys: Jack Brown, Laura Dastino, Nick DiBenedetto, David Dearson, Haley Dutch, Adir Dinan, Wilson Freeman, Frank Garrison, Paige Gilliard, Adam Griffin, David Hoffa. Oh, this is the guy who was speaking in the article. Nothing alt-right looking about him. Why, he doesn't look the least bit alt-right at all. Why, I would never picture him or finger him for having attended the Charlottesville white supremacist race riot. Absolutely not. Why, no way you could look at him and, well, how could you possibly think that? John Houghton, Jeff Jennings, Chris Kaiser, Donna Matthias, David McDonald, Isaiah McKinney, Molly Nixon, Joshua Polk, Michael Poon, Andrew Kinyo, Sean Radomski, Josh Robbins, Alexander Smith, Jeremy Talcott, Caleb Trotter, Katie Valoy, Luke Wake, Aaron Wilcox, Daniel Weislaw, and Charles Yates. Do you all see that list of attorneys and not a black face anywhere in the room? Not a black face anywhere. They have an entire, when we talk about these suspected white supremacists and their foundations and their think tanks, when you see that kind of thing happening, that's the kind of thing I want you to be aware of. That's the kind of thing I want you to be aware of. When we talk about these things, that's what they got going on. You haven't seen anything even remotely similar from the so-called NAACP core or any of the rest of these folks. You ain't seen nothing even remotely similar. Not at all. Not at all. That's the thing I want you to understand here. You all want to know these folks here are Johnny on the spot. White supremacy has a never-ending stream of resources that they put together specifically to target us in all branches of government. They are out to target us at all branches of government. I told you all here, going on 15 years ago, I told you that going into the 21st century, you're going to start seeing these white foundations, these white legal apparatus that used to sit up here and talk in these vague terms. They can't do it anymore. This is Brother Neely Fuller's prophecy that if we start making a situation where we are calling out white supremacy for what it is, not racism, not discrimination, we start calling it white supremacy and start attacking it on the basis of the name of white supremacy, then it's going to force these other people to come out and say exactly what they're fighting for. They're fighting for white people, and they're fighting to target us. Now they got to come on out and say it. Now they have to come on out and say it just like it is. Ed Blum has to come out and say it just like it is now. They got to come out and put their cards on the table face up. They got to put their cards on the table face up. That's the thing we're looking at there. It goes on here to say, elsewhere, deep-pocketed corporations that operate in multiple states have acquired social equity licenses, possibly frustrating the intent of the laws. Arizona lawmakers this year expressed concern that licensees have been pressured by predatory businesses into ceding licenses. Did you get that? Did you get that? If you are able to get one, they see if they can try to finesse you out of it, pressure you out of it. Hey, can we buy that off of you there? That's the other side of it. Did you all know that was going on? These corporations are saying, okay, we can get in one way or another. If you get a social equity one, ooh, let's see if we can go ahead and buy them out. Difficulty in finding locations due to local cannabis business bans or in obtaining bank loans due to continued federal prohibition has also prevented candidates from opening stores. In some cases, the very things that qualified them for licenses, living in poor neighborhoods, criminal records, and lack of assets, have made it hard to secure the money needed to open a cannabis business. The drafters of Washington's pioneering law were preoccupied with keeping the U.S. Justice Department from shutting down the market. They required background checks designed to keep criminals out. Quote, a lot of the early states, they simply didn't have social equity on the radar, said Jana Rendonova. That is a damn lie. That is a damn lie. That's a damn lie. We've had that on the damn radar from the very beginning. We've had it on the radar since the very beginning. We have had this on our radar. We've been saying since the very beginning that they need to release those folks, and those need to be the people, if you're going to legalize it, the folks who've been penalized, those are the ones who need to have the licenses. We've been saying that since the very beginning. That the black people who were targeted by the war on drugs, if you're going to legalize it now, those people need their reparations. You locked them up and then said, okay, now it's legal. Let's give some white folk the licenses. No, if it's legal, let them black folk out. And they need to get the licenses since it's going to be sold. They don't need to be penalized for selling it. You can't sit up here, you throw all of them in jail, and then when you make it legal, okay, everybody gets a license to sell, except those of you who were selling before, you can't have it. We're going to give it to the white kids that you were selling marijuana to. Those will be the ones we give it to. Many states that legalized more recently, including Arizona, Connecticut, Ohio, Maryland, and Missouri, have had social equity initiatives from the start. They've been toothless lions. Watch that initiative stuff. When they give other people benefits, it ain't a damn initiative. They don't need a committee. They don't have to hold a commission. They don't have to do a study. They just give them what they need. Washington established its program in 2020, but only in the past several months has it issued the first social equity retail licenses. Did you get that? They established their program in 2020, and 4 years later, they've issued their first social equity retail licenses. But they're giving illegal aliens anything they want. Isn't that amazing? When it's time to give something to black folk, it gets held up and stalled and delayed for years or decades. And then when it actually does get given out, it's just a trickle. All these other folk get flooded with resources without having to ask, without having to fight. And this is what a race war looks like. If you all agree that's what it is, give me the black fist emoji in the chat room and hit the likes button for me. It's over 2,600 people in here live in just the first 20 minutes. Now I want you to have a proper view on this. Now, here is the video from the Associated Press, Mr. Ward that they were talking about here earlier. I want you to see and hear what the video from the Associated Press says.
Every day I would look over my shoulder and you have that feeling. You were like, I know one day they're gonna come get me.
Washington State opened its first legal marijuana stores a decade ago.
Here we go.
More than a decade later, the industry remains overwhelmingly white.
Okay, is there anybody who thinks that that's accidental. The majority of the people that you arrested for selling marijuana were black. Now the majority of the people that you are giving the privilege to sell marijuana are white. That's not accidental. That is a race war.
More than a decade later, the industry remains overwhelmingly white. Washington State is trying to encourage minority ownership and ownership by people who have been directly impacted by the war on drugs.
Okay, we don't need to hear about no damn encouraging. The people that you arrested, they had a monopoly. You gave a monopoly on arresting and incarcerating black people. You now need to give them a monopoly on selling and distributing it. What? You now need to give a monopoly on selling and distributing it. It needs to sound like,
welcome to Good Burger, home of the Good Burger. Can I take your order?
You gave yourselves a monopoly on targeting us. There was a monopoly to target us. There now needs to be a monopoly to benefit us. We need to have a monopoly on benefits. We damn sure had a monopoly on prosecutions. It is now time to give a monopoly on the benefits. That's what it needs to be. No playing around, no goofing off, no messing around. It needs to be that. A monopoly. That's how you started this, and that's what you need to do to address it.
Ownership and ownership by people who have been directly impacted by the war on drugs so that they can benefit from this legal industry. I'm standing in front of the Cloud9 cannabis store in Arlington, Washington. It's one of the first 2 stores that have been licensed under Washington's social equity program. One of the owners is Sam Ward.
Do you all understand what that does? I want you to follow the timeline here. He's saying that they've given white people who were not targeted for selling marijuana, they've given them a decade head start. They've given them practically all the licenses and a decade head start. And then they get a couple of black folk and say, okay, here's 1 or 2 token symbolic licenses. So you can get 1% of the market. Everything else goes to the white folk. Plus we've given all of them a decade head start. You're coming in to get the damn crumbs. We've given them a decade head start. You're going to come in a decade later when the market is saturated, and now you're going to be fighting for crumbs. And this is what they do across the board. We are economically targeted, economically stymied. They wipe out our neighborhoods. They prevent us from getting capital. They incarcerate you when they can. And then everybody else gets to just roll along. And then we get up 100 years later. They say, okay, you can go ahead and start running now. The whole market is built out. The market is built out. The market is saturated. And then they tell you, okay, you can go get a piece of the market now. Now that we've gotten all the prime real estate, now that we run everything, sure, you can go get a piece of the market now.
Been licensed under Washington's social equity program. One of the owners is Sam Ward, a man who served federal time for a drug conviction.
It feels good. It feels great to know that I'm a CEO of a store and employees, people depending on me. Every day I would look over my...
All right, let me go ahead and deal with a couple of things here. This Pacific Legal Foundation, talking about they don't like it because they think... We don't like it because the Constitution, what the Constitution prohibits. People, remember, they legalized weed against federal law. They ignored federal law, which the Constitution is supposed to be the implementation of. They ignored federal law from one state to another. Now, all of a sudden, you're going to tell us, oh, we got to follow the Constitution, which the Constitution doesn't say anything about that, by the way. The Constitution, you're acknowledging that it gives white people privileges. That's not that's the first thing you got to take a look in that regard. So with the Constitution, excuse me, I don't want to hear about that being an obstacle. Giving money to illegal aliens is unconstitutional. Giving preference to non-citizens is unconstitutional. They do all kinds of unconstitutional things every damn day. Allowing recreational marijuana was unconstitutional. That was against federal law. And yet they ignored federal law, the Constitution, every damn thing else. Illegal aliens, they ignore federal law, the Constitution, every damn thing else. We show up. Wait now. We gotta dot our I's and cross our T's now. We can't just freestyle. You can't just ignore federal law now. Can't just ignore federal law. That's when we show up. When we show up, you can't ignore federal law. Only when we show up. We got to abide by the law now, but you've been breaking the law on every damn thing else. Well, that's different. That's different there, Leroy. Now, Mr. Ward, they just talked about in the article. Talked about in the video there. He's also featured in the article here also. It says here that Ward's turnaround is one officials hope to see repeated. You don't have to hope to see it repeated. All you got to do is properly fund them like you do the white kids, and it will repeat itself. It doesn't require hope. It just requires you to do the same thing for everyone else. That's the whole damn point. It requires the same thing for everyone else. That's the whole point there. That's the whole thing for you to take a look at. They know what they're doing there. They know what they're doing. So they do that on purpose. That's not something to ignore. They know what they're doing there. They know what they're doing. You see that over and over again. When you see that happening there and it's uniform like that, it's not a matter of hope. They didn't give anybody else hope. They didn't give anybody else hope at all. They come to us and sit up here and tell you, okay, let's get some hope. Says here that he started dealing marijuana in his teens. He started dealing marijuana in his teens. In 2006, a customer pulled a gun on him and Ward was shot in the hand. A single father of 7 children, he continued dealing drugs to support them. He said until he was indicted in 2014, along with 30 other people, in an oxycodone distribution conspiracy. He served nearly 3 years in prison. Now, isn't that interesting? If he had been selling marijuana or something like that, if they had gotten him for marijuana, they'd be trying to give him decades. Oh, you're selling the drugs that the white folk use. Okay, well, that's a different thing there. We got to do something a little bit different. But then again, they don't give the white folk anything for that. Ward, now 39, spent that time taking classes, working out, and training other inmates. He started a personal training business after he was released, got a restaurant job, and joined a semi-pro football team, the Spokane Wolfpack. Now, here's where things change. That's where he met Dennis Turner, a black entrepreneur who briefly owned the team. Turner had worked as a restaurant manager on cruise ships for the Postal Service and as a corrections officer before investing his savings, $6,000 in a friend's medical marijuana growing operation. They used the proceeds to help open a medical dispensary in Cheney, a small college town southwest of Spokane, that eventually became an adult use marijuana retailer. In Washington's social equity program, Turner saw an opportunity to make Ward a business executive. The two joined Rochelle Palmer, whose husband co-owns the football team. So this is parlaying that, so look for them to target that. Now, by the way, now, look for them to target that. Look for them to target that. You understand, we've been talking about this forever from the Negro Leagues and things. This is why it is so important for them to stamp out and squash whatever we do economically. You got to kill that baby in its crib. You can't let it get any legs under it because black folk ain't gonna spin it all on rims. Black people aren't going to spend it all on rims and tennis shoes. They wouldn't be throwing all these obstacles in our way if we just going to spend it all on rims and tennis shoes. They're not afraid of folks spending it all on rims and tennis shoes. They're terrified to death that this will happen. And all it takes is a few. It doesn't take 90%. It just takes a few folk who are not being artificially handicapped and are allowed to flip their money. And next thing you know, they're making big things happen. Oh yeah, you're being targeted to prevent this from happening. This is why they made the laws the way they did, specifically to stop this from occurring. And just understand they're documenting how it happened so they can go back and reconfigure the laws to prevent this from happening. Now it says here that the two joined Rochelle Palmer, whose husband co-owns the football team, in launching Cloud9 at a cost of around $400,000. Damn! Did you get that? They're opening their marijuana dispensary at a cost of $400,000. They picked Arlington, Washington, 320 miles away because it's a quickly growing city with limited cannabis competition. They said, take a look at how much it costs just to go to a place with so-called limited competition. Did you get that? Take a look at how much it's cost them to go to a place with so-called limited competition. Limited. Damn near $500,000. That's to go to the place where it's limited competition. So, we're doing it kind of limited here, you know? That's what we're doing. We're doing it limited here. Okay. I'm just showing you that this is not accidental, nor is it subconscious. These are conscious obstacles put in our way. Conscious obstacles put in our way for what we're doing. Obstacles that other people are not encountering. Ward said, saw me as a guy that he looked up to. Ward, quote, saw me as a guy that he looked up to that did good business and was self-made and came out of the trenches, and he just wanted to pick my brain, Turner said. Turner is working to open cannabis stores in New Mexico and Ohio through social equity programs in those states. He hopes one day to sell them for tens of millions of dollars. Please. Okay. There's where the issue comes in. He's hoping to open multiple marijuana dispensaries so that he can sell them. Okay. In the meantime, he intends to use his businesses to support local charities such as the Boys and Girls Club in Arlington and the Carl Maxey Center, which provides services to the Black community in Spokane. So you get the idea here. Another social equity license is David Penn, 47, who helped persuade Pasco in South Central Washington to rescind its ban. Penn, who is Black, was arrested on a crack cocaine charge as a teenager. In 2011, he was kicked out of his apartment after a marijuana bust. A friend with two other cannabis outlets is financing Penn's store. His location, a dirt-floored building next to a gas station, still needs to be built out. State grants will help, but won't be enough. Quote, if they're giving you the carriage, but you need the horses to, it's like they're giving you the carriage, but you need the horses to get this thing going. One of the issues you're going to find here is that even if they give you, the license, now you got to go pay for real estate, insurance, and all the rest of that. While you've been in prison, these areas of the country that used to be modestly priced real estate have now become astronomically priced real estate. All of it's been gentrified. The real estate market is screwed up across the board, and that's when they're telling you, okay, well, go get your storefront. All the real estate now in these areas where you want to be, all the real estate now is outrageously high priced. The prices are outrageously inflated, and that's where they're telling you, okay, you can join the market now. Now, the white folk that they let in over a decade ago, they were able to get in when weed was just being announced, when it was just being allowed. The real estate market hadn't exploded and inflated all over the place, so they've got all the advantages. They waited until they gave all these other folk all these advantages, gave them everything. And then when you show up, you get stuck with a bill that's 3 or 4 times what these other people had to pay. And oh yeah, you're a decade late and $400,000 short. That's where they got you at. That's where they have you at. Right there. If you want to talk about marijuana and legalizing it and this, that, and the other, just recognize the trick bag that gets foisted on you. Recognize the trick bag that they put in place. Recognize how they've done that. And that this is the same across the board. So when we discuss these subjects here, when we talk about reparations, we need to be talking about reparations across the board. So when you talk about social equity here, what it needs to be is they need to go and transfer 50% at least of the current marijuana licenses. They need to go transfer 50% of those to people from our lineage who were targeted in the first place. They need to go take their licenses and transfer them to people from our lineage who were targeted in the first place. And since the governments love to give sweetheart deals for businesses, they give sweetheart deals for Amazon where they pay for everything. They give sweetheart deals to Tesla where they pay for everything. Intel where they pay for everything. IBM where they pay for everything. All these white corporations, the government sits up here and pays to set up shop for them. They want to open an automotive plant. They pay to set up shop for them. Well, you know what? Transfer them licenses to us, and you need to pay to set up shop for us. If it's not racially based when you do it for BMW or Tesla or Intel or Microsoft, if it's not racially, or Amazon, if it's not racially based when you do it for them, then it ain't racially based when you do it for us. If the Pacific Legal Foundation isn't showing up filing lawsuits about that, then nobody needs to be filing a lawsuit or anything else for us. And if they do, you're supposed to kick that crap back up out the courtroom. It's like, yeah, bye. They targeted us in the drug war because of our lineage. Our lineage was what was being targeted. And reparations need to also target our lineage. Restorative justice needs to also target our lineage. And let me be clear from the perspective on which I come at this from. I've never done illegal drugs. I've never drunk alcohol. I've never done any illicit substances. I've never done any of that. I think it's silly. I think it's stupid. It slows you down. It certainly is a handicap to you. Absolutely not. You know what else I don't do? I don't gamble, and I don't deal with prostitutes either. But we have many places in this country where those two activities are legal. And I stand by the same thing I've always said. If it's gonna be legal and if it's gonna exist where we are, then damn it, we gonna be running it.
And deal with it, nigga.
If it is going to exist, and if it is going to be operating, and if it is going to be making revenue, then we need to be running it. That's what that needs to be. If it is going to be there and operating, then we need to be running the damn thing. When it comes to the so-called Native Americans, they gave them Indian casinos. And well, if the vices are going to exist, if the gambling is going to exist, then we gonna run it. Okay, well, it needs to be the same damn thing with us. If it is going to exist, then we need to be running it. And they've done everything in their power to make sure when they set these things up, we are just perpetually confined to be the customer base, and they have designated themselves as the entrepreneurial and producer class, where they get to suck up all the proceeds, and we are designated to be trapped as the eternal customers. And they get to pass down generational wealth. They passing down generational wealth, which they take and then they parlay it into other things. Follow me, follow me, follow me, follow me. They spent decades selling cigarettes, killing people by the millions. They spent decades selling cigarettes and killing people by the millions. Did you get that? They set those things up and kill people by the millions. And then they took that money and they parlayed it off into restaurant chains. There's a whole bunch that the Philip Morris company owns. They took that stuff and parlayed that money from killing folk with cigarettes off into a bunch of other things. Then once they got their weight up, they picked it up and took it off into other stuff, parlayed it into other things, and now you couldn't bankrupt those companies if your life was on the line. You could not bankrupt those companies today if your life was on the line. I think the Seagram's company at one time owned Universal, or MGM, bet you they wish they hadn't given that up. So yes, as black folk, it's been past our time. But now, to make sure that we never get ahead, the government is now becoming a co-financier with all, not small white businesses, but major white businesses, to make sure that we never have the opportunity. This is the government collaborating with these folks to make sure we never get that chance, to make sure we're just frozen out. They want to make sure that we are precluded from being able to do anything. And that's why I'm saying if we discuss these things, we must discuss reparations across the board. So on today, my debate is not about whether or not you agree that marijuana exists or should be sold or anything else like that right there. What I'm telling you is that everywhere we go, when we talk about reparations, we need to be talking about it in this context too. We need to be talking about it in this context also. You'll notice that the Pacific so-called Legal Foundation didn't say anything about LGBT now, did they? Damn! Did you get that? They didn't say anything about LGBT, and they're really lying when they talk about gender. They're talking about black women. They're not afraid of white women being given preferential treatment under social justice. Their target is black women. So everything is black, 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 black. Everything is black, black, black. And I'll tell you one more thing. When you have these racist organizations like this, when you have these organizations that do that kind of stuff, they're supposed to be doing them like the NRA and investigating them. They're going after Donald Trump, and yet you've got all these suspected white supremacist foundations and think tanks that are operating, targeting black people, and nobody's taking a look at them and saying, hey, excuse me, let's go ahead and see about checking them out and checking the paperwork and seeing what's going on. Folks ain't doing that. That needs to be done. Do they have links to white supremacist organizations? That needs to be done. Are they sponsored and bankrolled by white supremacist organizations? That needs to be looked into, because when you start looking at these folks, you start asking yourself, by the way, where is their funding coming from? Where is their funding coming from? That's the thing that we need to start asking. So when we discuss reparations, we shouldn't just look at, having reparations in cash payments as far as a state committee and putting it on the ballot and this, that, and the other. We need to look at all these things going on. We need to look at all of that. We need to look at all of it. And every single one of them needs to come up in question. If you made a monopoly in targeting us for injustice, then there also needs to be a monopoly to target us for justice. Whether it is redlining, whether it is the war on drugs, whether it is gambling, whether it is anything else, if you sat up here and you made it a business to target us and have a monopoly against us, to target us, that's what we need to focus on. This is not about whether or not you agree with weed or if it should be legal or anything else like that. It is about whether or not we are put into an empowered position and how we get there. That needs to be our attitude across the board for it. You can take these things and parlay them in other directions, but if they strangle your economy and prevent you from making any money and everybody else is given everything that they need there, that's going to be the kind of thing that hobbles you for generations, because everybody else is not playing by the same rules there, and that's what they end up doing to you. That's what hobbles you for generations. Now you got a whole bunch of white kids out there and a whole bunch of Armenians and other white folk, and they're being given everything they need while they're telling you and me what we don't have to have. They're telling you and me what we don't have to have. That's the way they always play that game, is they tell you and me what we don't need and we don't have to have, and oh well, don't worry, we got that taken care of. And the white kids are already being spotted a decade and hundreds of millions of dollars. If you take this attitude like this, then you have that attitude in other areas too. When you have that attitude like this, then you start having that attitude and taking that attitude into other areas, which is ultimately where you want to be. However, you might disagree. Therefore, the telephone lines are now open, and the number is 646-787-1933. That's 646-787-1933, your personal access code to the blackest radio program in existence, the only one of its kind on planet Earth today. As always, you are welcome to join us. I want to go ahead and say thank you to everyone, and I do mean everybody who has contributed to support tonight's program. My brother, Mr. Richburg, thank you very much here today. We appreciate that. Nancy, Mark B., and everyone else here who's contributed to support tonight's program, thank you very much for your support. We're going to go ahead and take a very brief commercial, non-commercial break. When we come back, we'll open up the phone lines here. This is the Black Channel.
Hello, my name is Steve Burgess, and I'm the author of this book, Guidelines for the Successful Student, a closer look at parenting your school-aged child. In this book, I've explained the role of the parent and the student in addition to what accommodations, procedures, rewards and consequences and expectations that need to be in place to ensure student success from primary to high school. This book is available on Amazon.com. For more information, please visit my link tree at Easy One-on-One. And to access my latest podcast, A Teaching Moment with Mr. B. Thank you all for listening.
A white supremacist assassin seeks revenge. Corrupt FBI agents with evil intentions. Dangerous black collaborators dedicated to treason. Occam Jeffers must defeat them all and somehow survive. One misstep and he's a dead man. Join Occam Jeffers as he looks the devil in his blue eyes and tells him, Black First. A sequel to the underground hit War of the Heart, Spirit of 1811 Publishing presents God Love Us, on sale at Amazon. Pre-order and save today. Visit spirit of1811publishing.com and show your love.
Order yours today to experience all the benefits of Ash Kickin' natural body butter. With skin so smooth and soft, you'll thank us for it. Shop Ash Kickin' online. That's ASHKICKIN.com.
Hi, this is Brenda Starr, creator of Poetry with a Purpose and author of the book Pressed But Not Crushed. Pressed But Not Crushed is an anthology of political poems that address current and historical issues in American descendants of slave population and African American population. The book describes slaveries and its residuals, Jim Crow segregation, social depredation, and other relevant issues to American descendants of slaves and African Americans, including the current political climate that does not address our issues.
This is the Black Channel. I am your host, your brother, your humble servant, the Black Authority. Very glad to be with you all here this evening, and the telephone lines are now open. The number is 646-787-1933. That's 646-787-1933. I'm opening up the telephone lines here tonight, and I want to ask you all about that. Do you all feel that that's a legitimate course? If you've been sent to prison for selling marijuana, in particular, I want you to go ahead and call me up tonight. Don't give me your life story. But I do want to give you an opportunity on that because I want us to discuss about this because it has nothing to do with whether or not you consider it to be a savory business or not. There are a whole bunch of things that I don't consider to be particularly savory things. Folks running strip clubs and peep shows, that's not a business I'm interested in getting in. I don't think it has redeeming social value. It's certainly not something I approve of. Alcohol, cigarettes, all the vices, those are not things I approve of. Then again, there are a number of things that I don't, for a number of different reasons. I don't agree with cooning. I don't agree with generational systemic cooning, but that's out there too. So it becomes a question about how we handle that. Let me go ahead and get over here to the telephone lines. Let me get caller from area code 469. You're on live with the Black Channel. What's your name? Where you calling from?
This is Thomas calling from Dallas.
All right, Thomas from Dallas. What's on your mind?
I'm glad you brought this up tonight, Jason. I have a little knowledge on it because my nephew got into the marijuana industry out of Oklahoma, and he got into the grow side of it. And, man, let me tell you that for him, when he was trying to get his grow license, man, they put him through hell and high water. It took him almost 6 months just to get his grow license, because every time he would find a building, because you can't have a building close to a school or a church, got to be so many miles away from that. And man, he was finding buildings that weren't even close by churches or schools, and they was giving him the runaround. They kept giving him the runaround too. He was able to get his license, but here's the kicker thing of it: his white friends, man, was getting their license right away. I mean, no problems. I mean, close to churches, close to schools, and there is a when they say minority, they mean they're not talking about black people. They talking about everybody else except black people, because everybody that you can get licensed, because in Oklahoma the license only costs $2,500. So that's why you got more dispensaries and more grows in Oklahoma than you have in the United States, because the cost of entry is low. But if you black, good luck. I mean, even the Native Americans, man, are benefiting off of it. You can go across the border right here to the rent and where the casinos are at, and there's a dispensary. You come out of the casino, and you can fall right into a dispensary that's owned by the Red Indians, so called. So yeah, they give the black people runarounds, man. And I've seen it what they did to my nephew. So
yeah, I mean, it's one stop shopping. And remember, I talked to Freeway Rick Ross for 8 a.m. Same thing happened to him in California, and we have the same story. It doesn't matter where we go. When they open up these licenses and whatnot, black folk are sitting up here on the outside looking in. Everybody else is able to log in when it's time to open up to apply for the licenses. Everybody else can get in 15 minutes early. The black folk are sitting up here locked out. And the very fact that you would sit up here and show that the majority of these are white owned, that's supposed to be cause right there to say, okay, we're going to break that up. We're going to break that up. We're going to redistribute that. That's what the hell you're supposed to do. And they call it eminent domain otherwise. And for black folk, that's exactly what's supposed to be happening because they've rigged it like anything else. You cannot have this type of strict uniformity of experience across the board everywhere you go, from California to Connecticut. It's the same thing everywhere we go. Black folk are always sitting up here being kept out of things, and that's not engineered. This is what we mean by systemic racism. Mm-hmm. It's systemic. It's the same. You have the same experience everywhere you go. I'll let you have the last word.
And also, if you say you black and you do get the marijuana grow license, guess what? You got to keep track of everything. Every leaf that falls off, every stem, every shake. I mean, you name it, man. They make you keep control of everything. I mean, you got to put everything down on paper, and so that's why my nephew got out of it, because I mean, it was just too much to keep up with. So yeah, it doesn't matter if you get your license, man. It's a trick bag that they have for black people, man. B1,
brother. Thank you very much for giving us a call here tonight. I mean, here's the real thing about it here. They're gonna give their white kids a pass. They're gonna give the white businesses a pass. They can sit up here and have blatant violations. Bad paperwork, whole plants coming up missing. They're just gonna be given a pass or a slap on the wrist and allowed to keep going. You, on the other, all these rules and regulations, they put them all in place because it's impossible for you to operate the business by obeying all the rules and regulations. So as soon as they find one that you ain't following, we got to go ahead and take that. Got to ding you again right here. That's the way that works. The rules and regulations are not for the white businesses. The rules and regulations are for you. Call from area code 216. You're on live with the Black Channel. What's your name? Where you calling from?
My name's Tony.
Okay, you have a lot of background noise going on there, Tony. Can you get your act together?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I turned everything down in the background. I'm sorry, brother.
All right, what's on your mind? Where are you calling from?
I'm calling from Cleveland, Ohio. Okay,
Tony from Cleveland, what's on your mind?
I just wanted to make a statement that, when I was younger, in high school or whatever, I was dealing with a lot of cats who, who was in the business of selling it, but the one cat that I met that was the biggest at it, whatever, it was a white boy, man. And he wasn't even like no big ass white boy or whatever. He was like a little white boy or whatever. And he had bread, and he came from an Italian family with some money or whatever. But the most weight and the best herb that I ever seen, even to this day, man, was from the white boy. And it's like, I don't know. I think a lot of what you're saying is true. Is the rules and stipulations are there for us to block us, not to block anybody else.
I mean, look, that's always been the way it's been. When you take a look at the proliferation of the cocaine trade, you can look at Cocaine Cowboys. If you saw that Johnny Depp movie Blow, which is some parts of it are very accurate, other parts not so much. But when we talk about George Young, and these were little skinny white dudes. These were not big. These didn't look like kingpins. They didn't look like mafiosos. These just like your everyday run-of-the-mill suburban white kids. And they were allowed to make millions and hundreds of millions.
Right. I think that's another thing, too. I think that, a lot of times with, when they associate anything criminal or criminality, they try to associate it with us first, and it's like, I think that's, I don't know. I think like the earlier caller said, I think that's part of that trick bag, It's like, that, because everywhere I go, everywhere I notice or whatever, you think they paying attention to everything else going on? No, they paying attention to your black ass. That's what they paying attention to.
I agree. And I know what you're saying. Thank you very much for giving us a call tonight. Let me get caller area code 914. You're on live with the Black Channel. What's your name? Where you calling from?
I'm Travis from Mount Vernon.
Okay, Travis from Mount Vernon. What's on your mind?
Well, I was just going to say, it's crazy that they locked up so many black people with drugs. And I'm saying, you got the Chinese tribes out here growing $40 billion worth of weed in Oklahoma. They're not locking them. They're not going down on them. The white boys, they running these multi-billion-dollar drug operations. They're not getting locked up. Black people, you don't even got a $1 million organization. We get hit with a RICO.
No, I mean, absolutely. You make a very good point. I have yet to see the RICO indictment for these folks selling oxycodone and Percocets and all that. Sammy the Bull, they just go grab him and his son. Nobody ever makes these in the RICO cases. Nobody does that. What you're trying to say is that nobody is trying to mass incarcerate the white folk for selling drugs. But then again, they never have. Yeah. Mass incarceration was for crack cocaine, not powder cocaine. And the discrepancy still exists to this very day. So you're absolutely right. Nobody's trying to mass incarcerate them for that. No, that's for Negroes. Thank you very much for giving us a call tonight. Let me get caller area code 206. You're on live with the Black Channel. What's your name? Where you calling from?
Hey, good evening, Jason. This is John calling from Seattle.
All right, John from Seattle. What's on your mind?
Interesting. I wanted to make a point and follow up with you about something you mentioned about Washington State. I live not too far from an area where I don't know if you remember the famous basketball star Sean Kemp from Seattle. Now he has his name all over a dispensary near area in Seattle, but when you do the research, come to find out he owns like less than 5% of it. But they're always advertising. They post up online like pictures of him in there, like, behind the counter, you know what I mean? And so they use his whole name to Trojan horse in the fact that, like, make it look like a black person, is owning and very active in the business. But behind, the majority of the whole business is white owned.
Yeah,
and
that
so,
sounds about right.
That's one of the problems out here, too, with these businesses, that it's a finesse sometimes when they use a minority face on the business, because when you look at the paperwork and you pull the curtain back, you'll see it's still majority white owned. So we have to watch out for that too when they come with these programs directed at trying to, bring the rights to the wrongs that they've done to the community. When you pull the curtain back, you'll see that it always comes back to the same thing. They figure out a way to where the money still flows back to their pockets. And see, that's the long game they play with us. So we have to be very careful about what's in the details of these programs and the way they're giving out ownership.
Well, I mean, here's
some type of reparations.
Here's the thing.
Excuse me, go ahead.
We can't be coy or shy about those things. Our votes and everything else have to be unified in that regard. And that's why I'm bringing this up, because, and I'm not saying that there's no merit to it necessarily, but what I am saying is that in a system of white supremacy, we have to be a bit more sophisticated in that regard. Mm-hmm. That's why I'm using myself as the example. I don't smoke weed, never have. I advocate against it. Right. But I also understand that it's being weaponized and used economically. I understand that. The same way with cigarettes and alcohol. And I'm not going to call people prudes or anything like that. I'm not going to be demeaning in that manner. I can understand why they would be against that. But what I am saying is that these are mechanisms, these are economic mechanisms also. And even if we never use them, there shouldn't be any artificial obstacles in our way. None whatsoever. Even if we never use it, that should be our choice to never enter into these industries. That shouldn't be somebody else's decision. Because the bottom line is, they're keeping us out of everything. You can't name a single industry in America where black folk dominated. You can't name a single one where we dominate the industry. You can name some industries where black people are prominently featured. Now, you can name some industries where black people are prominently featured, which is what you're discussing with Sean Kemp. He's prominently featured on the business. Well, yeah, but he don't run it, and he doesn't own it.
Right.
And so that's where we get relegated to, is the best you can be is prominently featured. You can get on a billboard. You can be shown. You can be the face of. Yeah, but where the money and the control is, you ain't got no part of that. So when it comes to us for our economic agenda and our political agenda, I don't have to approve of opening dispensaries, but I'll be damned if you're going to give all the licenses to the white folk. Now, there's the problem. And our votes, along with everything else, we need to include that as a part of it. So when I talk about dealing with this across the board, that's what I mean. I'll let you have the last word.
No, I'm in total agreement with you. But just a follow-up question, where you kind of just answer it, as if we do start to see some of these programs pop up, what would be your advice to black people? Are there certain things that they should be looking for so that they can't get finessed? Like, I know you mentioned a couple, like we do need access to these programs, but should we demand that there be a certain number, like what would you say to that?
Okay, what I'm saying is that when Amazon comes booming into town, they don't ask no questions. Jeff Bezos is giving whatever he wants across the board. That's what he gets. BMW comes booming into town, they get given what they want across the board. They tell the cities and the state what you gonna give them. And nobody asks those kind of questions when they show up. Where black people are concerned, you damn right, it needs to be the same damn thing. Here's the issue though. We don't need to have a damn coon out moment like in Detroit. See, there's the problem when you get into the problem right there. That's why a couple of years ago and whatnot, when Luther Campbell down there in Florida, when they're holding their Twitter spaces, and then that woman is sitting there talking about reparations ain't the issue. Housing and college is affordable housing and insurance is the issue. And that's the kind of stuff right there that has to be shouted down and knocked out. That's the kind of thing right there. It's like, oh, no. We all need to have at least the most of us on the same page about what we're really here for. We're not here for symbolic things. So when this kind of stuff comes up, we can't be shy about it, nor can we allow the politicians to be shy about it. We need to have some get up in their faces moments. You cannot have the churches telling you what it's going to be. The churches need to follow our agenda, not the other way around. And furthermore, just like when I popularized the phrase cut the check, I popularized the phrase cut the check, and everybody now, from presidential candidates to talk show hosts to rappers and everybody else, everybody's talking about it now. That's fine. But I have to remind you all, why did Jason Black have to create the phrase cut the check? Because black folk were shy and coy and squeamish when they were asked, in what form should reparations be given? Now, I wasn't afraid to say cash payments. I'm quick. When you talk to me about any subject, I'm quick to tell you it comes down to dollars. I don't play about nothing else. We got to get straight to dollars. But I realized that most black folk were shy and meepish and coy and bashful. And when they were asked about reparations, they were trying to find something else to say other than cash payments. So this is what opens up the door to people to start saying, well, how about some scholarships? And how about some diplomas? And how about some job training? The same thing you're already making in laws now, which ain't helping us. I was the guy who said, cut the check, because it was a form of saying that people were a lot more enthusiastic to say. It got the point across. Everybody understands there's only one way you can cut the check. Oh, you saying cut a check? Okay, because a check is money. A check is money. You can't rewrite a check into something else. A check is money, legally by law. It's money. That's right. Okay. Once folk got in tune with that, we could deal with that. What I'm saying is that when it comes to advocating for ourselves, brother, we can't be bashful. Everything can't have the language changed on it to make folk more comfortable with standing up for themselves and their agenda. That's the problem. So when these kind of things do come up, we cannot be bashful. We cannot be shy. We cannot be coy. We cannot be lily-livered. We can't sit up here and try to reword it and dilute it and water it down to make other folk comfortable. We got to throw the bag on the table. this is what the agenda is. And we are the people that the agenda is for. This is why LGBT got what they want, and Latinos got what they want, and Jews got what they want. Candace Owens said something, and Jewish society as a group rose up talking about their Jewishness. We show up, and all of a sudden we try to make folks more comfortable that they're black folks sitting in front of them. So let's talk about anything other than being black. No, let's talk about being black. Let's talk about your drug laws targeting us because we're black, and we want to know what is it you are offering that will specifically help us and target us for restoration. And we got to say it just like that, not worrying about no legal foundations or anything else, because let's be very, very clear. These folks uphold the laws the way they want to. You can scream, yell, holler, and cuss. They can file lawsuits or anything else. They uphold the laws they want to in the way in which they want to. And we have to be very strict and very stern and very firm. You gonna do that for us. So when we come up with the agenda, the black politicians, everybody else, we need to not be afraid to make some awkward moments. Marcel Dixon is a wonderful example of how you deal with that. You need to be informed on the subject. You can't be stumbling and bumbling about it. When you get in front of these black politicians, you need to go straight to the point. I'm here to advocate for my people, straight to the point. And then if the folks are not backing our agenda, out they go, which is why we've been so consistent that when these politicians talk about reparations, and then we say, well, I got a reparations agenda in California, and they naming every damn thing except passing the money. We ain't going to play that. And we said it to their faces, we're not going for that. That's the way you do that. And going forward, we just need to be 10 toes down on it. Thank you very much for giving us a call tonight. Let me get caller from area code 702. You're on live with the Black Channel. What's your name? Where you calling from?
Hey, Jason, it's Cal in Vegas. I just wanted to talk about what was going on in Miami back in the 80s and 90s when I was a kid growing up. You had that was the first what I would call successful mass ethnic cleansing of foundational Black Americans from a space, handing it all over to the so-called white Cubans, and part of that was, of course, looking the other way when they were dominating the drug business.
Yeah, absolutely.
From the home side. Also, at the same time, in the early 80s, there was the cable television business. Okay, and so that's another one you can that I remember very well. Black people were getting cable licenses, and then of course you have to build out a cable franchise with everything from service to engineering and everything else around it. And of course, the Black folks who managed to win the cable franchise lotteries end up having to sell their licenses to better financed white companies. You know, that's why people like Don Martin and Bob Johnson were basically, you know, they were the ones allowed to get through.
Well, I mean, you know,
else ended up.
Here's the killing thing about it. And remember, I worked for these companies. These companies are federally subsidized. AT&T, Comcast, right. Time Warner Cable, Cablevision in New York. These companies are federally subsidized. The federal government pays like for the fiber optic build out that they're doing now. That's federal tax. Our fat tax dollars are going to promote that, to pay for that. The white companies own it, but we financing it. So wow, if you had done that for black folk, where would we be? Because it's not a handout when you do it to AT&T. That's not a handout. When we show up, it's a handout, but for AT&T, it's not a handout.
Well, I'll tell you what happened. Don Barton, who was like the ideal. He was like the ideal magnet of his time, regardless of color. He used his cable television franchise to branch out into things like casinos, and he was in auto racing or boat racing, one or the other. And he was a commodities trader, I think. But he basically did what you're supposed to do when you get into a business. You grow it, and then you conglomerate. And, they stopped. I mean, he died at a young age. He died like 58, 59 years old. But he was doing all of those things, and now there's no traces left of his empire, none.
And that's the way it ends up. When we show up, there's nothing left. Thank you very much for giving us a call tonight. Let me go ahead and get caller from area code 412. You're on live with the Black Channel. What's your name? Where you calling from?
Good evening, Jason. My name is Robert. I'm calling from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. What's lost in this discussion is certain dynamics, not discussed more. The fact that marijuana and most illicit drugs are the products of genetically modified organisms, which causes sterilization, laziness, and our desire not to partake in important things in our community. Do you remember the first Godfather movie when the mob was discussing about getting in the heroin business? One of the mobsters said, "Give it to the blacks and let them lose their souls." That's it. The way we can get back at this beast is to not partake in this dirty business. We don't need these drugs. Let them have it and let them use it for their own communities and so that they can lose their souls. That's what I'm saying. We don't need those drugs. We need to be focused on trying to extricate ourselves out of the attack of genocide that's been implemented against us, all and everything. Business, nutrition, social structures, political structures. So that's so important.
Yeah, but everything that you just said, there isn't a error in what you just said. But however, once again, there's an aspect that is missing here, brother. There are a lot of things that we, quote, don't need. You don't need leather seats in your car. You don't. You don't need air conditioning. You don't. You damn sure don't need fast food, which kills a hell of a whole lot more people than marijuana does. You don't need that. So if the standard is going to be, number one, we don't need it, and number two, it has a deleterious, look it up, it has a negative effect. If that's going to be your litmus test, then brother, we're gonna shut down 60-70% of the businesses there, because the only thing you need is food, water, and clothing. So if you're going to relegate it to that, that's going to remove a lot more things than just marijuana.
And I agree with that, Jason. You're very succinct in what you said, and I'm in agreement. But we have to, since we are such a nadir point in our very existence, not only in this country, but throughout the world, we have to be razor focused on doing everything we can. We have to have all hands on deck to fight this beast that's
yes, sir. Yes, sir. And that's exactly my point. All hands on deck, including the weed sellers. Please remember, Black society's liberation didn't come from the academics and the big head dudes with the thick glasses and the damn academics were the coons collaborating with the white supremacists. Our liberation came at the hands of the street cats. Dr. John Henry Clark talked about that, the dudes down at the pool hall. Our liberation came from the gangsters and the dope dealers. Madam C.J. Walker came from the soil. She came from the street. And we can go down the list. The Black Panthers were not a bunch of magnet school graduates. They came from the street. They came from the gutter. So, I mean, let's be very, very clear. It's a nice ideal in that regard. But if you gonna say all hands on deck, you got to mean that. All hands on deck. And that includes the dope boys, the hoes, the gambling house, the pool hall. All hands on deck means all hands. All hands. Not all clean hands. All hands.
It takes teamwork to make the dream work. So, hey, how about us using these drugs against the very people that are trying to impact our communities?
Well, I got a better idea. I have a better idea. Instead of worrying about using drugs against anybody, how about we just use it for ourselves? How about that?
You mean just use it for ourselves and not try to turn it into a business?
No, what I'm saying is that instead of focusing on how it negatively affects somebody else, stay laser focused on how it positively impacts and assists you.
Okay.
Because you can't think about it like this, brother. You can't run a business trying to put somebody else out of business. It's a truism of economics and entrepreneurship. Vengeance Incorporated doesn't work. You can't run a business on vengeance. You can't. A business can target people to a certain extent, but that's competition. But you can't go into business saying, and what we're going to do is screw those guys over there. Vengeance Incorporated practically always goes out of business. If you want to get in business and stay in business, focus on operating what you're doing for your benefit to the best of your ability, regardless of how it affects anyone else. Please understand, most of the damage that is done to us as black folk is really by other people's callousness. That's why it's called benign neglect. In many cases, it's not so. That's why white folks sit up here, and every time we talk about systemic racism, when white folk are honest, what do they say when we point out to them about how the numbers clearly show that we're routinely targeted? What do they say when we point it out? They say, well, I mean, it's not so much that you're being targeted. It's just that's the way the system works. You're the easy, low-hanging fruit to get. You're in a disadvantaged position, so disadvantaged people are always going to be the first victims. So what we're saying is, yeah, but our disadvantaged position was engineered. So in their minds, it's out of sight, out of mind. I'm not in their minds, they tell themselves, well, we're not targeting them because they're black, although they notice that most of the folk they mess over are black. It's because, well, you're the easiest one to get to and your resources are easiest to take. So what I'm saying is, in reality, they are more focused on benefiting themselves than they are with acknowledging the racist behavior that's going on. So what you're saying, the end result, if you want that result, just understand, I think the standpoint you should come at it from is, how does this help us without regard to anybody else? How does this help us?
Your logic is indisputable at what you just said, but I was kind of like dealing from the emotional aspect of how we're being attacked in all phases and what we should do to try to get out of the situation. And so I'm in agreement, but I still feel that we don't need leather seats, but there are some things that we can do without to move our community forward. And thank you for the time, brother.
Thank you very much for getting this call here tonight. And like I say, man, I know what you're feeling. I know your frustration. I understand how that goes. But by the same token, I want to keep you focused on that. That's why I started the program. See, this is what I meant with the other caller I was talking to there, is that when we sit down to carve out our agenda, that allows white supremacist society to come in and divide us. Well, we need to have a fully functional economy. Yes, we do. Everybody except them dope boys over there. Yeah. And everybody except the hoes over there. Yeah. And everybody except the fast food joint over there. Yeah. You see what I mean? Other folks are interested in setting up their economy. And when it comes to us, it'll be, okay, well, we can do it for everybody except them niggas over there. Not them niggas over there, though. Not them. These other folks don't have those arguments. They don't have that kind of litmus test. Please remember, it isn't black folk who took rap music and gangster rap music and elevated it. We're not the ones who did that. These white folk over here are the ones who put the big money and the backing behind it and the promotion behind it, Interscope Records, Priorities, so on and so forth. They're the ones who did that. Universal Music Group, they're the ones who did that, not us. And everybody and their mama talking about the negative effects of it and this, that, and the other, but they're the ones who did that. And they didn't have an argument or debate amongst themselves. Tipper Gore and friends had them put parental discretion stickers on the albums, but they did not stop their fellow white people from selling and distributing the albums. We show up, and the next thing we do is start trying to put litmus tests on other black people and purity tests. We start trying to put purity tests on them. And I am not for a second saying that I approve of it. I have said for the longest time, and my record is very, very clear on this, what I do not approve. You go to Atlanta, and there's Magic City in the shadow of downtown. Matt, for those of you who have never been to Atlanta, Georgia, by the way, let me remind you again. Magic City is literally across the street from the Greyhound bus station in Atlanta. What? My people who live in Atlanta know, and my people who visited Atlanta or you've been to the Greyhound bus station, by the way, the internationally known Magic City Strip Club is right across the street from the Greyhound bus station, which means your slutty ass daughter can get a Greyhound bus ticket from Oregon all the way down to Atlanta. If she wants to go strip and fling them butt cheeks at Magic City, she literally will just when she gets off the Greyhound bus station, she literally will walk across the street. And it's not a 4-lane street either. For those of you who don't know, it ain't some great big huge intersection, some fancy intersection. It really looks backwater. It's like a 2-lane road. That's the Greyhound bus station in Atlanta, and Magic City is right across the street. I know because I've been there. I mean, I've been there standing in front of the Greyhound. I ain't been to Magic City, but I've seen it. I'm not sitting here fighting for their right to stay open or this, that, and the other. But what I am saying is it exists. And it's right across the damn street from the Greyhound. Right across the street. And if black folks sell Magic City tomorrow, it's going to be some white folk or some Arabs or some Asians who gonna step right in and grab it. That's what it's gonna be. That's the reality. Turkey Leg Hut is having issues. If they close it down, it's gonna be some white folk who gonna open it back up and call it the Turkey Wing Hut. You know it's true. It'll be some white folk or some Latinos who gonna try to grab the exact same building, and they gonna just change like one word in the name. Turkey Leg Hut to Turkey Thigh Hut. Turkey Leg Hut to Turkey Drumstick. While you sitting up here yelling about the calories. No, I am not the least bit in favor of our daughters out there snapping on their rubber band G-strings and bumping they donkey in front of people. I am not the least bit interested in having it, seeing it, or promoting it. But let's be clear. If we are having a discussion about promoting an economy, then we need to be able to manage our economy. We need to be able to manage that economy, including the so-called vices, including that. That's what it means for you to be running and managing an economy. That is nation building, because we all ain't gonna do the same things. No, I am not in favor of some of this stuff, but does that really matter? There's a bunch of things that I don't do. I'm a damn monk compared to most people. I can't have that be the standard. I can't. You have shopping malls with all these people. Do you realize 95% of the stores in every shopping mall I've been to, I just walk past them bastards. I don't walk in them. So in other words, if you're depending on me to keep your economy going, you're in trouble. You're in trouble. They don't smoke, they don't drink. Okay, let me tell y'all something. Some of the best car mechanics that I had were chain smokers. Let's just put this on the bricks. Every single person in here who has had their car worked on, you had at least one mechanic He's sitting there with a wrench in one hand and a cigarette in the other, or a wrench in one hand, a socket in the other, and a cigarette hanging out his mouth. If you're going to tell me that the standard is, okay, I want a mechanic, but he don't smoke and don't drink, nigga, I hope Pep Boys is open in your neighborhood. Damn! Because all you're going to be able to get is an oil change. But if you're talking about engine work, transmission work, serious body work, man, look here. Hey, that's it. It's a free smoking zone. Menthol at my ass. It's a free zone. So yeah, you can sit there with your IT credentials or your state government employee badge or your nursing license or your accountant's certificates. You can sit there with that, but you ain't gonna be working on the car, dude. You ain't gonna be doing construction. You're not gonna be a welder. That's not gonna be you. The cats who gonna be doing that, and I've worked in those places. I've worked in automotive repair. I've worked in construction. Never smoked a cigarette in my life. They damn near killed me with theirs. Secondhand smoke. They damn near killed me with it. But let's just be real here, man. Let's be real. There's a bunch of y'all listening to me right now. Robert, pay attention. There's a bunch of y'all listening to me right now. You can't function without your morning cup of coffee. And if somebody get in your face about it, you like,
deal with it, nigga.
They tell you, hey, you know that black coffee you got's kind of strong, that smell and everything. You sitting up here glaring at this nigga over the top of your Starbucks.
Deal with it, nigga.
You're like, hey, can you ease back with that black coffee? Nigga, please. Come on now. There's a bunch of y'all, you can't function without your morning coffee. And you ain't trying to hear nobody say a damn thing about it. He talking about he don't like the smell of that black coffee. You like, well, I hope to call the paramedics for your ass, because they going to be wheeling you out of here. I'm going to be sitting over, I'll help them put you on the gurney to put you in the ambulance. With my coffee in one hand, I'll hold it on the one side like a pallbearer. Here, let me help y'all load his ass up. At least now he can't complain anymore. At least now he can't complain at me anymore. Wheel his ass out of here. Get him on out. I'm just saying, man, it's a whole, you talking about beer. You talking about beer and cigarettes, and I'm not saying the DUI is not. I'm not saying the beer is the same as coffee. I'm not saying that, but I'm just saying that if that's going to be the standard we use, if we're going to use that one, I'm perfectly fine without coffee of any kind. Have you been to a hospital? Jason Black is perfectly fine if every coffee plant on the planet disappears tomorrow. And you know what will happen next? Is going to be a bunch of dead niggas because hospitals run on coffee, dude. Your doctors, your nurses, your orderlies, your nurse practitioners. What are you talking about? Hospitals run on coffee. Damn Dunkin' Donuts. Hospitals run on it. If you don't know, that's only because you've never worked or been around or associated with somebody who works at a hospital. Man, they can't function without their coffee in those places. And everybody does it. You got a doctor who has to do a 24-hour shift, a nurse who has to do a 13, 14-hour shift, and you talking about, here, drink some orange juice? No, man. No, that's not the way it works. See, there's a bunch of people in here who are commenting right now. I ain't never seen y'all comment before, but you perked up, pardon the expression, but you perked up because like, yeah, Jason telling my life right. That's what it is. So I'm trying to be the advocate and articulate it. And that's why I'm saying, hey, there's a bunch of things that you and I don't do that these other folk do. But you know what? I'm not pulling another engine out of one of my Escalators. I'm not doing that again. Damn that. I stopped pulling engines 20 years ago. I stopped doing that 20 years ago. I'm getting somebody else to do that. I haven't had to have an engine pulled in a very long time. But what I'm saying is, the next time it needs to be pulled, I'm not doing it. I'm not even thinking about doing it. And the guy who is probably going to be sitting there with a pack of Newports. Now I'm going to be like, okay, smoke away, but get my engine done. Can you get my engine done before you smoke your ass out of here? Can you get that done? Jason, what about his health? Well, I mean, if he does fall over, I guess I'm looking for a new mechanic. I guess that's what I'm doing. And the next one probably going to be smoking too. I'm just saying that can't be the standard here. He can't function without his damn cigarette. He can't work on engines without his cigarettes. He can't focus. He's nervous as hell. He's worried I'm going to be in his ass about that engine. And he's right. I will be. If he messes up that engine, he's right. I will be. You damn right. If it ain't done right, I'm busting a U in the middle of the intersection. You damn right. You damn right he's smoking because he's nervous. Jason gonna be back. He's serious. Yeah, that's gonna be him. And he is right to be nervous. He damn sure is. Because I will be right back up in there. Okay. So who gonna get him his smokes? So who gonna get him his smokes? That's what I'm trying to find out. Cause he say he can't finish this. He can't calm his nerves without his cigarettes. Okay, I'm here to clean him up. The hell I am. Get this nigga his Newports and get to work on my ride. I am not the damn morality police. Finish my damn truck. If a pack of Newports if he tells me it's 3 days to finish my truck, but a pack of Newports will have you out of here in 1 day, man, do you need me to go to Circle K? You already good? You already got it? Or do you need me to go? Did you bring what you need, or do I need to run down the street right quick and patch you up? What you talking about? I got things to do. I got things to do. What grown folk do after that, that's on them. I got things to do. Take your smokes, get this thing done so I can get up out your shop because I ain't making no money up in here. About my cigarettes, do what you do, partner. Do what you do. In the chat room talking about secondhand smoke. I ain't sitting up in there while he working on it. I did that 20 years ago. I don't have to do that anymore. Secondhand smoke me ass unless the nigga finds his way to my house. I'm not worried about no secondhand smoke. He's in there catching contact by himself. His assistant got to worry about the secondhand smoke. Jason Black don't. I'm sitting at home. I'm sitting up here calling him from 8 miles away. You done my truck yet? That's me. I ain't catching no contact. The folks around him, that's their ass. But me? I'm sitting at home. Secondhand contact my ass. I got no contact. Don't smoke in my truck. That's the other thing right there. Smoke your cigarettes outside my truck. Don't get in it. Y'all know sometimes your mechanics forget themselves. He's sitting in the damn truck acting like, boy, this would be nice if I own one, nigga. If you don't get out my truck with them cigarettes, I do not want it smelling like that. Get out of my truck with them cigarettes. I want my thing smelling like it did when I brought it in. It smelled like Issey Miyake when I brought it in. I don't want it smelling like Marlboro Miyake. Issey Marlboro. I ain't trying to do that. Do what you do. The chick down the street, she wiggling them butt cheeks. I hope she makes some money off of somebody else because she ain't going to get a dime off of me. Okay, but then again, if she do make a dime, oh, hey, we got to tax that. Your OnlyFans, your Snapchat, tax-paying citizen. Let me get that dollar right quick. No, baby, I ain't giving you none, but I got to get it. I'm on the city council, I'm the mayor. I got to get it. Okay, wiggle them butt cheeks, but remember, you owe us 12%. Remember to file your state taxes, 12%. No, I did not come pay you, but whatever you get, 12%. Coming down here. Call from area code 404. You're on live with the Black Channel. What's your name? Where you calling from?
I'm calling from Atlanta, Georgia. This Baldwin the 4. It's funny that you mentioned that. You know, man, you got every poor Negro in town that wants to drink Hennessy, and they want crab legs. Now, let me tell you this. I can't think of that one black person that packs crab legs. I can't think of that one black person that distributes Hennessy or any kind of alcohol. Matter of fact, I go in stores and don't even see it in there. So like you said, we got to start getting in these people's face in these stores and demanding that they buy from black folks. Because that's the ones who putting up everything. And I tell you another thing, a store ain't shit if it ain't got nothing in it.
That's a very good point to it. Thank you very much for giving us a call tonight. It's got to have something in it. Let me get caller from area code 317. You're on live with the Black Channel. What's your name? Where you calling from?
Hey, how you doing tonight, Mr. Black? This is Gary from Indiana.
All right, Gary from Indiana. What's on your mind?
Well, it's funny we having this conversation because I'm in Indiana and I'm stuck between Michigan, Illinois, Kentucky, and Ohio, and they all just went legal. And the reason why it's not happening like this here for us is because we got to deal with Lilly. We got that major pharmaceutical company in the state, and they trying to keep the laws back. But my thing is, I can see the Urban League and NAACP, which I am one of their biggest critics, not advocating on how these black men that got arrested on weed charges should have first dibs at licenses, because Lilly's is funding these organizations to not advocate that. And I can see that as a problem.
Yeah, I mean, in certain areas, these corporations they try to, maintain what they got to a certain degree or whatever, but it's not going to work because the bottom line is there's a misnomer about legalizing weed, this idea that, we want to do this and that and the other, and it's big money. In reality, that's not really true. In reality, it's not really true. And, a bunch of folk who got their marijuana licenses, now they're not making no money because it costs so much to run the dispensaries and everything, and they get taxed so high. What it is, however, is your governments don't have a better idea. Legalizing marijuana is something that they can do, and it's something that will bring in some money. It doesn't necessarily mean it's a great idea. But then again, everything can't be Tesla and Apple and Amazon. So they're going to have to, pretty much everybody's going to eventually legalize it, except for probably some of the southern states. I think the Midwestern states are going to eventually do that, but some of your Midwesterns might not, but the southern states are probably never going to do it because it's not it's not really in the culture like that. But the ones who do, there's going to be heavy, heavy pressure on them because they don't have the other ideas. They don't know how to build economies. They don't have another idea. And this is just something easy and simple to do. So Eli Lilly might as well get, if the majority of the population there and the majority of the legislature is on board, then Eli Lilly is this, whatever they think they're doing, it's not going to work.
Well, they're doing it because they know they can't make a profit off of it. They can't use none of their growth farms to profit off of it. So that's why they're trying to keep the law at bay from keeping it going legal in the state.
I mean, yeah, if it serves their personal interests or whatever, but eventually it's going to, like I said, you got some corporations that run states. Hell, in New Jersey, you still can't pump your own damn gas. It's last place in America now that you can't do that. So there's some of these places here, they do have some silly fiefdoms and things like that. But eventually, like I say, Eli Lilly is just, you better get back to selling them bogus ass vaccines because you're not going to be able to protect this. Thank you very much for giving us a call tonight. Let me get caller from area code 206. You're on live with the Black Channel. What's your name? Where you calling from?
Hi, good evening. This is Agnes calling from Seattle, Washington.
All right, Agnes in Seattle, what's on your mind?
Hi, excellent broadcast this evening. I live in the Seattle area, And you were spot on when you were talking about how these dispensaries are now in gentrified areas. One of the main dispensaries is owned by just one man from one family. It's called Uncle Ike's. It's all over Seattle. He has a monopoly on the grow industry and also the vertical and horizontal. So he also controls the group farms within the 50-mile radius. Now, where he has his businesses set up used to be in the Central District, all black. 20 years ago, they were hauling in everybody who was even suspected of having weed. And those guys were only making nickels and dimes. Now you got Uncle Ike's. His dispensaries went up in 2015, 2016. They were the first group that went in. Little bit of capital. That was back when the Central District, little bit of money. They were still kicking out all the black folks. Now, just like how you said, you've got mostly upper middle class or upper class whites and Asians that are in there, and they're making a killing. It's like, 20 years ago, they was locking up brothers and sisters. There used to be a church that was sitting right next to the weed dispensary. Uncle Ike bought out that church. That church had been there for 35 years. Where are our priorities, people? And another thing, the first Seattle dispensary that opened up back in 2014 was in an area that used to be predominantly black. They kicked everybody out, and the Seattle zoning laws changed in favor of the white investors whom they gave the seed money. They gave them the business licenses back then. I think back then the business licenses were only a nominal fee. They gave them the seed money with state grants for them. I kid you not. They had state grants, and they were given mostly white guys. They had a couple of Asian guys who got in on it too. And look at them now.
Well,
and like you said, 10 years later.
I forget. I'm having a freeze right now. I can't remember the freeway that goes by downtown. I can't remember which freeway that is.
5.
Okay, that's 5 that goes by downtown. 5. And is that Federal? Is that the big exit that goes off into downtown?
Yes, it is. James Street.
Okay. All right. So, because you live there, Agnes, are there any dispensaries down there?
Yes, there are.
Yeah, because you see the Performing Arts Center, that theater down there, and they got the Asian stores and things like that. But you say they do have dispensaries down there in downtown proper.
Yes, there is one right there, like not far from Chinatown. I kid you not. And it was the first dispensary that opened up in Seattle. And guess who has a piece of that action? That's right, the business people in Chinatown.
Okay, but what you said, though, was one.
They control the distribution and sales part.
Right. But what I'm saying though is you said there's one dispensary downtown.
In the Chinatown area, yeah.
Okay.
The other 4 are in Capitol Hill.
Right. But I'm talking about in downtown proper, there where all the skyscrapers are and stuff, and the Performing Arts Center, that theater and things like that. I'm talking about down there.
Oh yeah, there's actually more than one now.
Okay, because that's the kind of thing that I would be interested in knowing about there. Because, like I say, it's just for folks who have never been to Seattle. It really tries to, its execution is really a lot like a wannabe knockoff San Francisco. So if you get out downtown and stuff, there's a bunch of people walking around and stuff. They really want to be like San Francisco. Like the part over there that's where the Space Needle is, it's like the houses in San Francisco where the hills go up and down and stuff. So Seattle really is trying super hard to be this knockoff San Francisco. And they're succeeding, by the way. They're trying real hard and they're succeeding. So they've got that encouragement going for them there. And that's the kind of thing that I take a look at, because what I'm saying is that strikes me, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, that strikes me as the kind of place that the white kids would be going to get their weed at.
Yes, exactly. Because the smaller, it's a franchise. There's like 4 franchises, I kid you not. The smaller ones that have like 2 or 3 stores just within one neighborhood. And these are literally your college kids. I kid you not. These are your 20-somethings, 30-somethings. Again, white generational wealth. They're taking that seed money that they get literally from their parents, or they pool their resources, getting, 4 or 5 people, getting a couple $100 together. Boom. They got the license. They got the business. Next thing you know, 4 or 5 years, they got 4 or 5 stores within the greater Seattle area.
And here's my thing about that. When you're talking about these younger white kids and things, here's the interesting part about that. It's that they're actually not really users like that. They treat marijuana the way that they do rap music. They're aficionados.
Exactly.
They understand it and understand the culture, but they understand it on the periphery or from the outside looking in, or as a fan, not as an actual participant. So they become completely fluent in marijuana, completely, versed in marijuana without becoming marijuana heads themselves. This is just the business that they do. In many ways, it's a lot like these Arabs that come over here. And, I used to have some Arabs I've known, like I said, it was back in transportation. I used to have some Arabs I knew. And, they were talking about how it was really a contradiction because as Muslims, they're not supposed to be selling alcohol and cigarettes. They own convenience stores. They own a chain of them. And really, they're not really supposed to be selling alcohol and cigarettes in order to be good Muslims. And yet, there it is. So with these white kids and whatnot in these areas, that's really what that is right there. It's like they're more like aficionados, but not actually participants in the culture itself.
Exactly, because they just only want to know the surface level, like the biology of it when they're doing strains, or they just want to know the business aspect like marketing, sales. And that's it. That's the only part of the culture that they really dive into because that's how they're growing their businesses. A lot of the horizontal business structure with the distribution, that's all they want to know. And then with the vertical aspects of the business, they know just enough to be dangerous and just enough to corner their part of the market with what they're doing because they got it specialized. It's crazy up here.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's business. It's business, and they're teaching their children to operate it as a business from an early age. And
absolutely,
if this runs dry, they'll just flip the storefront over or something else into something else in 30 or 40 years.
Good point, because what happened was there used to be a local chain, unfortunately, near where I live. I don't partake. And what happened was that guy got run out of business. You know what he ended up doing? He flipped his 2 little stores that he believed was not making enough money. He flipped that into a strip mall.
Yeah, I mean, well, you can do that. In New York and stuff, they tear down every brown. It's the craziest thing in New York when they tear down the brownstones now. They'll tear down the brownstone even though it's part of this interconnected thing on the whole block. But what they'll do is they build like another structure there that's 4 stories tall. So whereas your brownstone was 2 stories tall or 3 stories tall, what they build next will be 4 or 5 stories tall. And so they flip that over. Or if you own a storefront downtown or whatever, like I say, today it could be a storefront, but in 30 years, you can make it a hotel, you can make it a condominium, depending on what's happening and whatnot. So even if the marijuana business just needs to give your family, seed capital and extra capital from there. You can parlay that into other things. And if the real estate needs to be changed, it can be changed from a weed store to a hotel or a condominium or whatever else in the future. Because now you've got the capital and the backing to do, you and your heirs have the capital and the backing to do so. Not just for today, but 40, 50 years from now.
Exactly, and that's what the 20 and 30-somethings are doing. They're using the grow industry and the marijuana front stores as their turnkey opportunity to parlay that into something else. Thank you. Thank you very much for having me on. Have a great day.
Thank you for giving us a call here tonight. We do have one caller on the line here. They are apparently calling from somewhere else. If you haven't let my mods know where you're calling from, you're going to need to let them know that. Letting y'all know, like I said, look, these are things for us to discuss here because as black people, we need to be on the same page. as descendants of the slaves, we have to be on the same page. We have to have the same idea about this. We have to have the idea that it's not really incumbent on us to use these things. But folks, I'm telling you, understand something. There is going to be a marijuana market. Let's just understand that. There will be one. It will exist. Because it already does. Doesn't matter if you never touch this stuff in your life. When you talk about the economy of your city, this is going to be a part of it. The only question is, will you be controlling it? That's the only real question. The question isn't, will it be here? It will be here. The question is, will you control it? Can we afford to have parts of the whole parts of the economies of our cities and our states that we don't control? Can we afford that? Can we call ourselves a fully matured community or people when you got whole parts of your economy or city that you've ceded to other people? That you said, well, that's reserved for them. That doesn't mean that it exists unregulated. That doesn't mean it exists uncontrolled. As a matter of fact, I'm saying exactly the opposite. It needs to be controlled. But I'm telling you, the first thing you must accept is that, number one, it will exist. It will be there. If black folks stop fooling with it tomorrow, everybody else is still going to be dealing it and still doing what they do. The only difference will be, well, now they all control it. That's going to be the only change. They all control it. Folks, Budweiser is one of the biggest drinks in the world. What you talking about? There's going to be beer. There's going to be spirits, whether you go touch it or whether you don't. No, I'm absolutely against alcohol, certainly against it driving. Why do you think I drive these land tanks that I do? I am certainly very wary about folks driving while intoxicated. Absolutely. I'm also letting you know that the richest man in the world, Bernard Arnault, owns LVMH, which stands for Louis Vuitton Moet Hennessy. That's what it means. Right now, the richest man in the world, his company, controls a lot of these spirits. These expensive liquors. That's how big that is. That market is big enough to make him the richest man on the planet. More than Jeff Bezos, more than Elon Musk. It is going to exist. All you're saying is, you know what, Jason, let Bernard Arnault be the richest man out there. Let him have that. That's what you're saying. Yeah, let him have those billions. Let those folks over there have those billions. We are the good people. We are the good people, and good people let Bernard Arnault be the richest man in the world and not us. What? So, Jason, don't worry that, we're missing out on that. We're the good people. Well, Jason, don't worry that we're missing out on the casino money because casinos lead to moral turpitude. And, we wouldn't want to have that. So let the red Native Americans have it. Let the Italians have it. And let the Arabs have it. We don't need to fool with any of that. We're the good people. And good people don't get billions of dollars from casinos and alcohol. Good people don't do that. No. We're morally righteous and upstanding people. We don't do that. Want y'all to understand that's what you're saying. When you You sit up here making a moral argument. I just want you to understand that's what you're saying. You're saying, oh, we're the good people and we don't do that. No, Jason, let all the bad people make all of that money. And there's the next problem, Jason. You're so concerned with money. Money is the white devil's tool. Money is the retreat of the evil and the manipulated and the corrupted, Jason. You worry about money too much. Now, shut up while I go down here to my job at the beer refinery. Shut up while I go down here to my job at the oil refinery, belching out all this pollution into the atmosphere. Shut up while I go down here to my job at Five Guys, where the 3 400-pound sisters will be coming in the morning to order about $100 in burgers. We're the good people because we stand for the righteous. We're the good people. Let Amazon, let Larry Flint make billions of dollars on pornography, and let Bernard Arnault let me try this a different way. Let Larry Flint make billions of dollars and employ hundreds of white people on pornography. Let Bernard Arnault make billions of dollars and employ thousands of white people on Louis Vuitton and Hennessy. Let Jeff Bezos make billions of dollars and employ thousands and thousands of white people selling their schlock. We're the good people. Let Remington and Smith & Wesson make billions of dollars and selling their lethal firearms. We're the good people. And good people let these other folks make billions of dollars. We have morality and righteousness. Let me get this straight. They got billions of dollars. Yes. And you've got morality and righteousness. Yes. And how many dollars? A few. Enough to defend yourself? No. But I don't need to defend myself. I've got righteousness. Oh, boy. Let's see how long that lasts. Caller from area code 510, you're on live with the Black Channel. What's your name? Where you calling from?
This is a long-time caller and listener, August from Oakland.
All right, August from Oakland, what's on your mind?
Whenever you have your broadcast about, marijuana laws and everything like that, I feel compelled to speak on my situation. I called back when you were talking about Joe Biden and his federal so-called relieving the possession cases that don't exist. And I called in and explained how I did some time in California for weed possession. Yeah, I'm just disgusted by. I was watching KTVU, which is the local Bay Area news station, and they had a late 20-year-old black girl on there explaining the origins of 420, talking about kids from Marin who used to meet up by a statue of 420 to smoke weed, which is a complete lie because I'm old enough to remember when people started saying 420, and it was always, the skater, gothic, white, racist types, that said 420, because what they were really doing was celebrating Hitler's birthday. And burning a J or a joint was their code for burning a Jew. And yes, it got popularized over the years, but it disgusted me when I see all the hoopla over 420 when there was no outrage when I was sitting in prison for 2 years because I had an ounce of weed in my pocket. And I bartend now for the Hyatt. And I was just in a discussion with some corporate muckety mucks who were at my bar talking about how, if it's illegal, it's morally wrong. And I had to explain the difference to this white man that what's the difference between illegal, and right and wrong. I had to explain to him that it used to be illegal in this country for me to read or for me to run away from my so-called master. And we got in an argument at the bar, but I'm going to land my plane right there and just point out the hypocrisy and everything like that. Thanks for the broadcast, Jason.
Good point to make there and whatnot. Illegal and immoral are two separate things. Remember what I taught you all last week. Right and wrong are decided by those in power. Whoever is in power defines, quote, right and wrong. You can have your own principles about it, but you can't enforce it. So those who are in power decide what is right and wrong. Caller from area code 617, you're on live with the Black Channel. What's your name? Where you calling from?
This is Joe from Boston, Massachusetts.
All right, Joe from Boston, what's on your mind?
Yeah, earlier last year, my wife, she was happy to bring an article to me about a black-owned cannabis delivery company. I said, I bet you it's not black-owned, because they were funded like $2.3 million seed money from Mollitium Capital, Mollitium Capital. And she's like, there's a picture of them. They didn't look FBA. One of them was a dark-skinned Hispanic from the continent of Africa, right? So they're talking about disenfranchised communities and all these things. And I'm like, see, like, what people would the venture capitalists give $2.3 million to?
I mean,
And,
so they would give it to
senator-
somebody they could control. That's who they would give it to.
Absolutely, absolutely. The senator was. She announced it on her Instagram, Facebook, everything. Everybody's all this hoopla. Everybody's jumping around. Oh, black owned, black owned. I knew it wasn't true. And then when I investigated further, they had like white staff, 3 white boys who they do like the tech and everything in the background. But I'm like, I bet you it's really their company and they're just using the black faces as frontmen to get like minority benefits and stuff like that.
Well, in a lot of cases, yeah, like I say, I mean, they'll have to fund it from the back end but then again, a lot of the black folk invited because they've made the economic hurdles and obstacles so formidable. We can't get loans. We don't have generational wealth to call on. So, yeah, if they don't get in through the front door, they do have a mechanism for getting in through the back door. Sure. Thank you very much for giving us a call tonight. Let me get caller from area code 917. You're on live with the Black Channel. What's your name? Where you calling from?
This is John from Brooklyn.
All right, John from Brooklyn. What's on your mind?
Peace to the guys, man. Yo, listen, can I just say one thing before, look, it's tough out here. It's tough out here because, we trying to pay attention to everything that's going on and everything like that. I miss I miss your broadcast from the beginning, Mr. Black, but I knew that I had to chime in, you know what I'm saying, and just like call in unexpectedly as I do. And from anybody from Brooklyn, New York, I got people that's after me, you know what I'm saying, like really don't like me, right? And I try to pass on your information. Like, listen to this man. He's talking some shit. Regardless of what, if you take it serious or not, he's saying something. He's doing some research. This is not a joke. This is back in the day they called it a Pulitzer Prize. Somebody award-winning journalism aspects of thinking, And I listen to you, my brother, and I'm frustrated because my own people don't believe in me.
Well, like I say, it's not necessary for you to convince them. Your job is to make sure you are the best, most capable person that you can be. Don't waste a whole bunch of time trying to proselytize the world and convert the world. You become the best you can be. If other folks are listening, that's great. If they're not, just understand the system of white supremacy tells you to your face, ignorance is not an excuse. Thank you very much for giving us a call here tonight. Like I say here, folks, I mean, it's the good, the bad, the ugly. These things will exist. And if we're going to discuss reparations, remember reparations across the board. If we're going to have that, we need to have a serious conversation about where we come down on this. If we're going to have an economy and if we're going to insist on controlling it, yeah, we got to control the good, the bad, and the ugly. We got to do that. And we can't quibble over it because believe you me, the parts that we refuse to control, other people will. Just understand that the parts of our economies, in our neighborhoods, in our cities, the parts that we refuse to control, other people will. It'll be there. It'll be capitalized on. It'll make money. We just won't be a part of it. We'll be frozen out. And I submit to you, can you have control of your community if you do not control its economy? If the economy is under the control of people who are hostile to you because you left a certain stone unturned because you're the righteous people and righteous people don't control all the stones. Somebody else gets a hold of it. Now somebody else has got a foothold in your neighborhood, in your economy, in your community, in your city, and you handed it over to them. I submit to you. Ask yourselves the question, can you control your community if you refuse to control its economy? It's not the way the mafia operated. They said if it makes $1, we controlling it. If there's a hooker out there putting on a peep show, she got to break bread. They're letting you know we control this. The white supremacist power structure lets you know today we control this. Here we're showing up and talking about, well, we don't really need to control that. Really? Really? Okay. We're going to go ahead and wrap things up here tonight. I want to send a big shout out here to my man, Evan.
Told you all that I was the greatest of all time. I told you today I'm still the greatest of all time.
My man, Evan, thank you very much for contributing to support tonight's program. Najee and everybody else, thank you very much for your support here as well. And if you are new here to the Black Channel, welcome to the haven of intelligent Black thought. We do this every weekend. Click that red subscribe button. Click that yellow notification bell. Join us each and every time that we are here. If you haven't been to our website, blackchannelfilms.com, you want to go and check out our groundbreaking, best-selling documentary work, 7 a.m., Gentrified, Race War, all available on DVD and streaming. Go to blackchannelfilms.com. That is blackchannelfilms.com. I want to thank all of you for tuning in to tonight's program. Thank you for watching live or recorded. Thank you for liking, subscribing, and sharing. And this concludes tonight's broadcast of the Black Channel. I am your host, your brother, your humble servant, the Black Authority. And until next time, my brothers and my sisters from around the world, remember, Black is the future, and the future is uncommon.